Hey, I appreciate your comment here. I don't think you're being disrespectful. I think you were just providing an opinion. But with you providing an opinion, I'd like to provide one back, especially because I see this energy running through the Black community right now. So I'd like to provide a different input in regards to this. So just bear with me. I'm going to probably cut this into a couple of different moments just to address everything I want to talk about. So the first thing that I want to address here is the idea of Black people were saying and Latinos still, right? Because what you're initially implying in that moment is that all or nothing, right? And that's, again, that's not a true statement. Like, that is in itself like a not factual based argument. Not all Blacks were pro Kamala, and they were not wanting the same thing that everybody's saying that that's what they wanted. And that's the same vice versa for Latinos, right? Like, that, those two statements were not true. Majorities, we can definitely, I guess, like, argue that, but like when you lump it into those groups, like, that becomes a dangerous precedent, right? Because you're giving credit to something that actually was not true. So I just want to address that first and foremost. Now, in regards to the N-word usage and anti-blackness, no, I don't think that those things should ever be perpetuated or used in any context in talking about anybody. I wish nobody used racial slurs to talk about anything, right? But the idea here, right, is that, again, we're running into the issue of a minority being lumped in with the majority, right? And so that minority has now contributed to the damnation of the majority. Like, that logic doesn't make sense. And that's where the problem essentially is from what's being pitched and really articulated by the Black community, which is absolutely terrifying. The Black community seems really, really stuck on this idea that Latinos are asking us to have this giant call to action and like be their Black Jesus, right? And maybe I'm missing the videos, but please point me in the direction of where that is happening. I don't know what's going on, and I'm realizing that maybe this is the difference of what happens from education that's taught versus education that you seek out. Because Black and brown unity is a very big part of history between our cultures, and for some reason, like, this is being completely ignored, and I just don't know what's happening in regards to that. If your first thought comes down to, I don't want to stand next to this person because this person from that group did this to me, that is not solidarity, and I need that to be very fucking clear, okay? I would be very cautious of Black liberals when they say and make statements into this. I feel like a lot of people's arguments are coming from those statements, like that whole 92%er like energy, right? Those are very scary concepts that you start to dive into, because a lot of those are very one-way streak of fucking thinking. And it's insane from those groups of people who have said repeatedly that they're going to stand out, who have vocalized so hard at the fucking forefront, like, this isn't our fight, we're staying out of it. But they keep vocalizing that. It's like, dog, we heard you the first time, but you want to be a part of this conversation, just not in the way that is expected of you. It doesn't make sense, because the expectation is to be present. Doesn't mean in body and mind, right? Like, does that also make sense? The bigger point that I'm really trying to get here, right, is that without some type of symbiosis, without some type of solidarity, right, I really need this to sink in. What I'm going to say here is that you are literally feeding into oppression, okay? Like, that you are becoming a part of the oppression. More accurately, sorry, as I tripped up my words, the systemical part of oppression, okay? That is what you're leaning into with making statements like this. Like, that is the root cause of the problem. I hope that somebody sees this and it fucking clicks, okay? I'm probably gonna lose followers like for this, and I guess it just kind of sucks, right? Because it's not even that like it's a hill I'm trying to die on. It's just that, like, I just hope people understand the point, right? But I don't know. That's all I got for you.
Yo, thanks so much for this comment. You're spot on. And it's not just, you know, the Black and the brown community. Yeah, that's definitely part of it. It's all of it. It's the LGBTQ. I mean, read that book, Chaos, on the Manson murders and how he worked with the FBI or the CIA. So in the 60s, this shit, it's been plotted ever since then to divide and conquer. We need to look at the history for what it really is. And you're totally right about that. My parents live out in the IE, and it's all Trump. You know, there's Asians, there's Hispanics, majority whites. I grew up in that area for part of my life between East LA and the IE, and it was that is that when you're around whites, you pick up on their mentality of racism, and you want to be at their level. You know, you're being bullied and all this crap, so you get whitewashed. And that's what it is now, is that they think being white is superior, which is what we're seeing. What has happened? These people at the top are majority white, and yeah, you know, we just really need to go back to our roots and really learn the history and unite, because this Latino on Latino fight, this hatred, this racism against our own people, you know, Afro Latinos against whitewashed Mexicans or whatever you want to call them. I mean, my mom is darker than me. I'm light skinned, but you know, I noticed that difference of, you know, people thought I was white and I got treated differently than my own cousins and my, you know what I mean? My family.
Hi, tribe. Welcome back again to this particular show here. I go by Sherlock and hope you're doing good and great wherever you are. Now, in this one here, so we're going to dive into deep into the uncomfortable truths about why many Latinos seem to always find a reason to disassociate with black people. Now, we've seen that one from colorism to cultural superiority, from historical anti-blackness to media brainwashing. So, literally, in this one, we're going to unpack how these attitudes are not just casual, but are rooted in deep, issues. Now, are these just misunderstanding or calculated moves? Let me know. But let's talk about the coded language, the unspoken hierarchy, and how anti-blackness sometimes hides behind the idea of just ripping out our own culture. Of course, drop your thoughts and comments, and we are also seeing the facts on just personal experiences being amplified. Let us also know that one. Now, these are the key. Latinos colorism plays a big role in distancing from dark-skinned groups, especially blacks, and brown pride. It's often promoted in a way that intentionally excludes or ignores black struggles. There's a long-standing history of Latinos practicing anti-black policies, and of course, even when their populations are partly Afro-descended. Now, social media has exposed a lot of low-key racist comments, but then, or let's say, for example, dog whistles from Latino influencers or TikTok creators. But many black creators have also cancelled this out. But Latino creators rarely stand in solidarity, unless it is to just control the narrative. At the core, it's about Latinos' proximity to whiteness. Some don't want to be seen as black to maintain that particular perceived status. So when push comes to shove, are Latinos truly allies, or are they just using proximity politics to climb the racial ladder? Of course, let's unpack this and more in the videos that I've just put together and compiled. And then, as usual, as we do it, guys, here, I will circle back at the end of this particular show with my thoughts, commentary over the same. But feel free to also to do the same. Do drop us your comments on the comment section of what your thoughts are. See you at the end of it.
So, and my mom was the darkest out of her siblings, so there was that. There was hatred amongst in our family. So imagine not being related to people. You know, blacks and Latinos were taught to really hate each other and fucking fight against each other when we're literally fighting the same fight. So we really do need to mobilize since yesterday against what is happening. And really, everybody that's been out there protesting, you need to start sharing that footage to change this algorithm, because the algorithm, oh my goodness, it's just spewing fucking hatred, and that's part of the narrative. I'm focusing on big tech so much because I'm studying cybersecurity, and I know for a fact they swayed the elections. Google. and I shouldn't even be saying these words because I'm gonna dox myself and fucking put on some list against, the government. But Google did sway the election. They had ads running in multiple fucking states, totally red, and other states were totally turned off, no ads. Obviously people went out and voted. I know that's a fact, but don't forget that there was a big propaganda machine pushing one side that helped sway the election. Anyway, I'm going on a rant, but the point is, we do need to mobilize. We need to organize, unite with organizations that have fought these fights and know how to protest, know what our rights are, know what to do, know what they're coming after, know how to protect ourselves in these protests. One of my friends in the military that worked in the PSYOPs sector told me, you need to be really careful going out there if you're going to protest, and protect your eyes, because optics, as soon as they scan your fucking eyes, you're in a database. We need to be wearing, protecting our eyes, covering ourselves, our tattoos, our identities, the same way ICE is. And we need to have our phones actually on airplane mode, but we should be taking cameras. I'm going to be taking GoPros out there and stuff. So I'll be sharing more on what I do. And on my Instagram, I've posted a lot of resources. It's Tomoko Dubs, TOM.
Why are black people saying this is not our fight making you upset? I've seen video after video from Latino creators or Latino people coming online pleading to black people to put our bodies at the forefront of this fight against illegal ICE raids, against deportation, against roundups, against undocumented people being rounded up and families being disjointed. But there's several reasons as to why you should not be shocked that black people are sitting this one out. You guys all remember that this is a subset of your community last year. You're also aware that across the board, overwhelmingly black people voted in favor of the candidate that had black interests, Latino interests, Asian interests at heart. Where if you look at the sentiments of what that vote represents, half of your community voted for this. Half of your community said F you to black people. Half of your community said, we don't care about you. Half of your community said you wanted to be white aligning and white adjacent. And now you're being reminded of the fact that you're not. We have to have the ability to hold multiple truths when we speak to each other as communities. The truth is that Latinos are not in a monolith. It's just an all-encompassing umbrella that they put you under. And that, yes, the majority of the people that voted for Donald Trump and were doing that were Cuban and were other people in different parts of the country, and undocumented people in Mexico, in California are being impacted by that. That is true. But what's also true is that there is a history of black people fighting and being at the forefront of civil rights in this country since the inception of civil rights in this country. And it's always been pushed back in non-solidarity from multiple communities who are voting and always going against black people. So this particular time when black women especially really came out in droves and really fought forward with our votes, and you guys didn't do it, your community didn't do it. It's like, why would I fight now? Why would I fight now? So I just need you, like, if you're gonna come online and make pleas and ploys to black people, because I've seen so many videos, start by acknowledging the fact that your community has colorism, anti-blackness, and voted against your own best self-interest. Start with that. Don't come in here and ask black people just to put our bodies at the forefront of the line, because we've been doing that for a century. Secondly, I think the majority of black people who are saying that they're sitting this one out are using their voice in other ways or having solidarity with you in other ways, but they're not going to protest. They're not going to go get hit by rubber bullets. They're not going to put themselves in harm's way or make that effort again, because you guys, it's time for you to fight for yourself. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense for you. Now, there's also a bunch of black people online who are asking black people to come out and fight for everyone, and everyone needs to fight, and this is our fight as well. While I do agree with a lot of those sentiments, because if they're doing it to brown citizens, they can do it to black citizens, and they can use the Congo and Haiti as an excuse to just racially profile all of us. That's very true. But you have to stop telling black people to put themselves on the line when black people are exhausted. Black people are exhausted. Black people have done so much for all communities in this country, at a certain point, there has to be a time where they need to rest. And right now, a bunch of people are resting, and that's fine. But there will always be people in our community who fight. Like, I'm using my voice every fucking day on this app. I've made an update about every single thing going on with ICE raids, locations, where they are, what's happening with Trump. I do it every day on my social page, and it's exhausting. Like, I'm actually exhausted. Today I put up like 10 posts. I'm exhausted, but I'm doing it because I know my voice has reach, and I know that people need to hear it. And that's my personal choice. I'm not doing it because I feel obligated. So stop trying to make people feel obligated to put themselves on the line again. I say that to say it's a lot of fucked up shit happening in this country. I know that people and families, I was in tears last night seeing people self-deport themselves and people getting rounded up, grandfathers and grandmothers and abuelitas getting taken away, who are the people who are the fabric of this city in LA. But I just know that it doesn't end here, and there are black people on that list. There are black countries on that list. There are black countries on that list, and I'll say that to you again. There are black countries on that list.
Let's continue the conversation about non-black Latinos and Hispanics using the N-word, because a lot of people are going out of their way to make asses out of themselves to defend their use of the N-word when they're not black. A common thing that I hear is, well, if black artists don't want us to use the N-word, then stop putting it in their songs. If the artist is black, they can use the N-word however they see fit, and it is perfectly reasonable for them to not want their non-black fans to not sing along to that part of the song, because it is incredibly easy to skip that part of the song when you're singing along. One of my favorite artists of all time is Kendrick Lamar. It is hard to find a Kendrick Lamar song that doesn't use the N-word somewhere in it. Does that stop me from singing along to the rest of the song? No, I will still sing the song word for word, bar for bar, but I will skip the N-word because I know that's not my word to say. It is incredibly easy for me to do so because that word is not part of my regular vocabulary. Look, I'm not using the word right now. See how easy that was for me? Then I'll hear a lot of Latinos say, well, if they don't want us to use the N-word, they should stop using the word themselves. Once again, they can use the word however they see fit because it is their history that word affects. It is their culture that word affects, not mine. And then I'll hear all the time, it's just a word. Get over it. It's not that big a deal. It's just a word. Why are you getting offended by words? The simple answer is it's not just a word. This word was used to strip black people in the United States of their humanity. It was easier to treat a person like an animal, like a science experiment, when you didn't have to call them people, when you didn't have to call them humans. So instead of calling them that, they called them the N-word. Because it was far easier to treat them like an animal if they gave them a name like an animal. And the fact of the matter is, whether these people want to be honest with themselves or not, is if there was a word that was used as a slur against Hispanics that had the same amount of weight as the N-word does in the black community, then 100% these Latinos and Hispanics would make such a big deal, a fuss about not wanting other races and other cultures to use that word. All of a sudden, they understand the power that words hold. But the fact that there isn't a word that holds that same weight makes it hard for them to admit to themselves that they know it's more than just a word and that it actually holds a lot of weight and history. The more you go out of your way to defend your use of the N-word, the more ignorant and stupid you just look, because it is so incredibly easy to not use the word. So incredibly easy. If it is not part of your regular vocabulary, it is so easy to not use. And the only people who get offended or upset by someone telling them they can't use the N-word is people who definitely use the N-word. No person who doesn't use the N-word gets offended when someone says you shouldn't be using the N-word. And yes, technically there's nothing stopping you from using the word. Just like there's nothing stopping you from going out onto the streets without wiping your ass. But just because you can do it and get away with it doesn't mean you should, because you look like an idiot when you do.
Now that I have addressed the racism within my own community, let's talk about the anti-blackness that exists within the Latin American communities. So I wanted to take my time before I made this video. I knew it was coming, but I had to go out in, the field and ask my people what's going on. So this is what I concluded. When I went to go talk to them, they said that, we don't like African Americans because they feel that we owe them something. I want to make two things clear. First, I want to start off by saying that when we say things like this, we are following the same agenda that we are fighting against. We are fighting against white supremacy and racism. Those ideas that, that we have, the way we think, the way we are taught to fear African Americans, that is the same thing that we are fighting against. It's no different. When we choose to speak like this and participate in these stereotypes, we are no better than the people we are fighting against. And that is a point I want to make very clear to the people within my community, that you guys sound ignorant. We need to figure it out. Where do you truly stand with this? Because, people are right. You can't ask African Americans for help when this is in the real world. That is how they are treated. My second point. Reparations are owed to the African American community. Without them, we would not be able to vote. We would not be able to go to the same schools. We would not be able to sit wherever we want. Let's not forget. They have been fighting for a very long time, since they came here. And us not acknowledging, I know I don't feel that as a country we have paid the respect that they owe. They really do. We owe them everything. It's because of greats. They're great people. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., the Black Panthers, they paved the way for us. They are the blueprint. And for us to go and participate in the same mentality that we are fighting against, it's just horrible. And it's wrong. If we don't fix this type of mentality and check our people, we are no better than the people we are up against. I want you to know that ignorance is our greatest enemy. So please do not allow yourself to be blinded by hate. I love and respect everybody, and I just want to say that if there's more people in the Latin community who are with me, I need y'all to say something. I need y'all to join the fight with me, because I can't be the only one.
I told you, tribe, that I'll circle back, and here I am. So, at the end of the day, the pattern is loud and very clear. Many Latinos will ride the wave of black culture, black music, black style, but when it is time to stand in solidarity, they suddenly vanish. When it is fear of being grouped with black struggles or just chasing white proximity, the dissociations is real. But here's the truth. You can't borrow the rhythm and ignore the blues. And you can't wear the culture and hate the people. If unity is real, it has to be honest. Not just when it is convenient, not just when it's trending, but when it is also uncomfortable too. And until that happens, we'll keep calling out, loud, clear, and unapologetic. I go by Sherlock. If it's your first time that you're bumping across this particular channel here, how about a thumbs up? How about a subscription? How about a tiny little leaving us a tiny little comment on the comment section? And tribe, see you in the next one.